Watching tonight, Sleep No More, one of Mark's episodes, and of course, you know, you've written those stories, but you've also been in the show as well. Now that's quite a unique situation for writers, isn't it? Being a writer and an actor and being in a show.
I think I'm only the only other person is Glyn Jones, who wrote the Space Museum.
Gosh.
And was then in the Sontaran experiment.
Ah, well.
Pardon? Victor Pemberton was a script editor, and then only appeared in a non-speaking role on the Moonbase. So
come on, what a knowledge!
Me and Glyn and Victor occasionally go out for a pint. Yes, and form a very small club and talk about art.
So you were Gantok in the Wedding of River Song, but actually I watched that. I like it like when they put a casting on or just add on stuff.
A very thin silicone rubber skin,
right?
Just
onto
subtle.
which you can build the prosthetics.
No, that's it. So basically, it's just to give that kind of lovely papery effect of older.
And then sort of
skin.
very blue veins, and it does make you feel older. I remember starting to sort of reach for my glass of water like that, thinking, no, I'm actually not 78 years old, but it makes you feel like.
That might have been the 4-hour makeup.
Yes, I was tired.
But you at least know what you're going to look like in 40 years' time, I suppose.
According to Millennium Effects.
Yes.
We'll see how accurate it is. Come give us a shout in 60 years.
Now, Mark, because you are a fantastic writer and you've been in Doctor Who and you've been a villain as well, you are the perfect person to deliver Kate and her team a challenge for this panel, aren't you? So this
is a new pilot for like Challenge Annika.
It's called Challenge Kate.
Yes, I've come up with an idea for a monster. I was reading an article about how, famously we only use a certain portion of our brain, and there's actually a lot more we could do if we had the capacity. So I thought very interesting if there was a parasite that had taken up residence in the unused portions of our brain.
Well, Kate, do you reckon your team can come up with that creation by the end of this panel?
Well, Brian and Chris, two of Millennium Effects' concept artists, are going to take on that challenge.
Well, let's welcome on stage. So from Millennium Effects, the two concept artists, as Kate mentioned, we've got Brian Coldrick and Chris Goodman. Let's just go another quick chat with them. Hey guys, welcome. Now, Chris, we'll have a quick chat with you first. You've heard the challenge and the brief from Mark. Now, you work in 3D, don't you, on your computer?
I work in 3D, so I've been modelling this in real time in a 3D program called ZBrush, which is a very popular ZBrush, so they say in America.
ZBrush?
ZBrush, I should say, the American way.
That's it, print it.
Yes. And yeah, we'll see what we can do in 30 minutes.
Well, you've got a bit of a way to go. You've just got a sphere at the moment.
Just got a circle.
Yeah, circle. Well, it's a good place to start. And Brian, you work in 2 dimensions, don't you?
I am, yeah. I'm just going straight into Photoshop. I've no time as usual, for using pen and paper. So I've only a half an hour, so we'll see how things turn out.
Okay, well, we'll keep progress with the guys and see how they get on. Now, how's this actually going to work then? They're going to devise their creations on there. What happens in reality then if that was a real...
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty similar to what happens in reality. I give them hardly any time to design anything, because, then the less hours I have to pay them for, which is wonderful.
Very true. So they've got sort of 20, 30 minutes now. What's a realistic time that they would work on something?
I mean, normally we ask for about a day and a half, and I mean that's really because when we get the script in, we kind of really have to let it settle.
Yeah.
The scripts will often only have a few descriptive words to explain what the monsters are, and we'll have to sort of read the rest of the scripts to get context. I mean, luckily Mark is a very visual writer, and so often when his scripts come through, it's quite sort of obvious what direction we're going in.
Yeah.
But some writers are sort of a little bit more vague, which is nice as well because it gives us the opportunity to grow within the story and kind of collaborate with them as we develop the design. So I mean, we get the script and I interpret it, and then I tell these guys to get going. But we also use illustration and 3D modeling. We also use clay maquettes as well. And I don't know if any of you have had a chance to go to the main arena, the Millennium Effects stand. There is a gentleman there called Gary Pollard, who's basically doing the exact same concept that the guys are doing back there in clay.
And there must be some creatures that are actually really difficult for you to imagine. And we'll take your first script, Mark, The Unquiet Dead, where the aliens were gas. So I mean, that was a great concept, but how on earth? I mean, I appreciate you won't have worked on that one necessarily, but if you've
Well,
got
it was all CG. That was,
yeah,
I think
but how do you actually? I mean, there must be some creatures that are actually very difficult because they're tiny, or because like that one that's gas. How did you come up with that one, Mark?
Oh, I don't know, it was just the idea was that they were sort of it was a ghost story, so they were hiding in the walls, as well, but it was sort of using Victorian technology. That was the idea behind that one. But I know sometimes there's a bit of a debate about whether something should be CG or not. I remember the werewolf in Tooth and Claw. It's a beautiful CG thing, but I think there was a big debate about whether that should be an actual costume and a prosthetic or not. You know, so sometimes it's a toss-up, really, isn't it, about what goes where?
Is a CG like the top tier in terms of money? Is it the most expensive thing to do you think?
I'm not sure, really. I couldn't really answer that. But I mean, on Doctor Who in particular, we all work so closely together. We work quite closely with all the VFX companies that work with Doctor Who, and also the in-house BBC VFX people. So, I mean, sometimes there's monsters that we do where we work together. So the half-faced man, for example, is a bit of both.
Yeah,
so, you know, we made the three, the physical puppet and also the prosthetic.
Oh, yeah, we've got it on the screen here.
This is actually a design that Brian did for the half-faced man, based on Ben Wheatley's sketches, and yeah, basically we built the physical thing that was there, and all of the cogs inside of his head were fully functioning, working cogs, built from copies of old clock parts.
Really?
And because it fit the period, so we tried to get period pieces that we could put in. And so when the digital guys got in touch with us, what we did is we filmed each layer of movement so that they could copy it exactly for moments when they had to put it into the actor's face, because obviously we couldn't remove part of his face.
Some of the creations you come up with are absolutely beautiful. You must be very, very proud of them. And does it feel quite sad when you finish with them and you've had to move on? It must be like a school teacher at the end of a school year and you've got to say goodbye and you've got to do it all again.
Yeah, we just love having them around, and obviously they go on set and they get worn by 7-foot-tall men, and then they're full of sweat, and then you're like, oh no, I don't want it back now. It's like a sopping foam latex suit.
Because
you can keep it.
It is great, actually. Have you been over to the other stand and seen some of the masks and things? I mean, they are beautifully made.
Do you know what I love as well is that there's still almost literally the thumbprint of the artist involved. There's a lot of that in the sculpt and everything. It still feels. When I was doing Lazarus, Neil Gordon said, I recognise, he said, I put a bit of Vincent Price in there for you. So it's not just what I might look like, it is a little bit of Vincent Price. And Gantok is based on a man called Rondo Hatton, who was in Sherlock Holmes and the Pearl of Death, and had this disease which made his face grow big.
Gosh.
So I think it's great that there's room for so much visual interpretation there.
And Mark, being an actor who has to wear prosthetics, it must take ages. Do you get a call to come in at 4 in the morning?
It's traditional because you have to first be ready ready for filming. So it's usually like a 4 o'clock call or something like that. But I love that because it makes me feel like Boris Karloff, And I grew up on all these stories of those sorts of makeup sessions. And it has speeded up incredibly. I mean, the latex and stuff is now so thin. And it used to be big pieces and stuff like that. But it's wonderful, still wonderful to do it, and great fun. And just the transformation, you can forget sometimes. I remember sitting in my trailer as Gantok, and I was just like on texting or something, and I just looked up in the mirror and jumped up. I forgot what I looked like.
Now, Chris and Brian doing their work over there, what sort of monsters have they actually worked on that we'll know about from this sort of a series? Can you think of
it? They've done so much, basically. As I said,
Brian
did the half-faced man, but also more recently, I don't know if you all saw the Mire.
Yeah.
He did the concept for the Mire, and he did that quite quickly. We went through a crazy amount of designs. I think it was close to 30, and we were running out of time because we're going to film soon. So we phoned Brian and said, you've got 40 minutes, and he came up with just these wonderful shapes. Later on, he went back and he went in and did the texture and the colour and all that sort of stuff based on some notes from production. But to begin with, it was just all of these wonderful bowl shapes. And Chris has done quite a lot, actually, because he's our in-house concept artist at the moment at Millennium Effects. He's done Skovox Blitzer.
At the moment. It all depends on this design.
Oh, yes.
His life is hanging by a thread.
So the Skovox Blitzer, that was in the Caretaker, wasn't it? That was an enormous thing.
It was, but it had like an amazing actor called Jimmy V, who it was also the Grask.
Oh yes.
For anyone who's...
of Balhoun.
He was, of course, yes, on the Titanic episode. And then, no, he's also...
Banna Capolata.
Banna Capolata, yes.
Banna
Banna Capolata, I always get that mixed up. But yeah, he's I don't know how tall he is, he's just over 4 foot, or actually slightly less than 4 foot, I think. So it's like quite a small performer, but the thing itself weighed about 250 kilos by the end.
Well, nice stuff. Now, we mentioned earlier the challenge that Mark's given Kate and her team. What we'd like you to think about, actually, is coming up for a name for this creature. And we won't worry about it yet, but perhaps at the end of the panel, when we have a look at the 2 designs, we will ask you to think of a name. So just recap on the challenge and the concept that the guys are coming up with.
A parasite which lives in the unused portions of the human brain.
So we can give...
I have many. You have many gaps available for it.
So, Kate, when you're actually working on stuff, I mean, they're on a computer now. Is that always the way it starts, or can it be pen and paper, or...?
Yeah, I mean, basically it's anything that can convey the idea as quickly as possible, because, I mean, basically if you imagine if you read a book and your friend reads the same book and you go, well, that character's a redhead in your mind, but your friend might think that they're a brunette. It's the same when you read a script about a monster. Everyone, even though it might say it's X, you might see it in a different way. So we need to get the idea across as quickly as possible.
And do you consult a lot, Mark, as a writer, when you submit your script? Do you hand it over and then let go, or do they come back to you?
Can't do that. Well, it depends. Sometimes, as Kate says, I always try to be descriptive because I have an idea, but then sometimes the concept is totally different but wonderful, and you kind of go with that. Something like the Ice Warrior, I was very, very keen to retain as much as possible of the original design, because I think it's a wonderful design.
Yeah.
But it became a kind of exercise in streamlining, really, because there were lots of the joints in the originals were kind of covered with shaggy hair, really just to cover the joints, and they had these famously sort of childbearing hips. So it's a sleeker.
There we are. They can see it.
The new one is a sleeker design, but it completely keeps that sort of crocodile feel and the scale of it. It's a beautiful thing, and it's also iridescent. I said that like a dragonfly's wing, it should be. So it's not just a block of green; it's got much more detail in it. But I fought very hard to keep the eye shapes the same and the head the same, because it's a wonderful
it was
design.
very, very recognisable. I mean, even when I saw it in the block of ice at the beginning of the episode, you knew just from the silhouette. Kate, how's this actually made? We've got the Ice Warrior helmet here, haven't we?
We do, yes.
What's it actually made of?
It's made of a special kind of rubber, and it wasn't until very, very recently that we were able to figure out how to paint this rubber. It's the same rubber that was used for the Autons. And the Autons are literally just as they are.
That's just the blank colour, is it? That sort of.
You can put a tiny bit of pigment in the rubber before it cures, but once it's cured, nothing sticks to it. But thanks to the wonderful people in the automotive industry, they've invented a paint system that actually sticks to this stuff. So I believe like the Ice Warrior and the Cybermen were the first creatures that we could use to make it, because it's so lightweight, it's so versatile, it's so strong.
Because I always imagine Doctor Who costumes must be terribly heavy and terribly uncomfortable, and you must lose about 3 stone operating them while you do
you do.
Oh, you still do.
Bring on the mire. Bring on the mire. Bring on the mire. So this is all just made of foam. Hello?
Yes.
We'll let you walk along the stage. So actually it's a fairly lightweight costume.
It is incredibly lightweight. I mean, he's a big beast. beast, but he is very, very lightweight.
Is it okay if I touch the Maya? Can I touch the Maya? That is really bizarre. Sorry.
I'm quite excited about in a year or two's time whether or not anyone can figure out how to make one for cosplay.
For cosplay.
Because
This would be a real challenge. I'd like to see one of these in a future. What do you think? That would be good.
we did steal a lot of techniques from the cosplay world. I remember visiting a lot of cosplay blogs to research. But,
now, we'll take the head off and have a look at the ghastly creature inside in a moment. But if you want to be a volunteer and come up on stage and have a go at wearing the Ice Warrior helmet, pop your hand up. We've got a couple of stewards, Ben or someone else, who will come and find you. We'll bring you up in just a moment. But can we take a look inside the mire?
yes, yeah, I think
Perhaps we can get Lise round to give a hand. And we can look at the hideous creature that's inside.
Yeah, the hideous creature is only appeared on screen for a few seconds, but it's terrifying.
That's horrendous.
I'm not a monster, I'm a human being.
Please welcome John Davey. Now, John, you're clearly a Maya, but you've appeared in Doctor Who quite a few times, haven't you?
I have. I've actually been in 35 episodes to date. I started as the Cybermen back in 2005, and then from there I've been the Heavenly Host, the Ood, Jadoon, Hath, Winder, Vigil, Whisperman, Maya, and a plethora of Daleks as well.
Fantastic. Now, I referred to John earlier as the John Scott Martin of the 21st century. I know many of you will know that reference. He was an actor in the classic series who was sort of in every monster costume going. So what's it like? I mean, do they vary much in terms of operating or...?
Yeah, well, the original Cybermen back in Series 2 were absolutely fantastic. They were very heavy, which actually helped for the acting as well. Because obviously they are meant to be made of metal, and because they were heavy, our movement was quite easy to actually do. Whereas obviously, as Kate was saying, this costume is actually made from a very lightweight material, so the challenge was to actually make it look heavy, even though it wasn't.
So you have to sort of stomp and labour all your movements?
Yes, we've had a fantastic choreographer on Doctor Who called Elsa Burke, and she normally spends about a day with us, taking us through the movements, and basically you have to portray through your body movement that the actual costume is heavy, so every step you basically take a little pause, and you basically just make sure that everything we do is positive and hard. And
does it ever go wrong? Because vision must be really tricky, especially in a great big visor like that.
It's pretty good, to be honest. We have to rehearse our steps, so a lot of the Cyberman stuff that we did, we were literally counting 12 paces forward, 8 to the right, and then 5 to the front.
And of course, if you're moving in what's a collective name for a group of Maya? Would it a herd? A flock?
Maya.
A Maya.
Maya.
If you're working as a team of 5, you have to all keep in step as well, don't you?
That's right. So before every take and every move that we do, normally I was in the front, so I'd actually shout at the guys behind me, and left, right, and left, right, left, right. So basically we would all set off at the same time.
Fantastic. Now, did we come up with a volunteer? Is Ben around? Did we get someone on stage who wants to have a go at wearing this costume? Now, we got a unit boy down there. Well, now we got a volunteer over here. George, hi, welcome on stage. Where are you from?
Chesington.
From Chesington.
World
right.
of Adventures.
Close enough. Close enough. Close enough. Now, you want to have a go at being an ice warrior? Okay.
Ice Warrior Myers Showdown. Would you mind taking off your glasses?
Okay, let's pop those on the chair here. So, Kate, what tips can you give for wearing a mask and vision and that kind of thing?
Oops, sorry.
Smaller ears. Small
ears, yeah.
Not so tall. Actually, Ice Warriors are tall. It's a good height, isn't it?
It is a good height, yes. Height is good.
Because I think in the sort of 60s and 70s, the actors who played the Ice
Wrestler, yes.
he was
6'7", I think he was.
Fantastic. Now, how are you getting on? Can you see much?
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, right, face the front. Look at this.
It's good size for an ice warrior.
Ice warrior, John. Can you do the voice? Do you remember how they speak? Mark, you do a mean ice warrior.
Yes. They speak like this.
Now, we've got our fantastic monster actor here, John. John, can you give any tips to George? Come over here.
So George, the Ice Warrior is a big, heavy creature. So basically, every time you put your foot down, really press into the floor and bend your knees, and then do it quite slowly, and that will give the impression that you are very heavy.
Okay, so if you turn around, perhaps you can march in the same direction. So here, I'll give this a go.
Okay, so George, I'll count 3, 2, 1, and then we'll start with our left foot, and I'll say left, right. Okay? So, I'll get a bit of space behind us, I don't want to trample you.
Okay.
And 3, 2, 1, left, right, left, right, left, right, left.
You're always following me.
Left, right, and stop.
Great stuff, well done. Big round of applause for George. I think this is probably the only time you'll see a Maya and an Ice Warrior together. How did he do then, John?
He did very well. He did very well indeed.
So there we go. We're just
Might be a new recruit for a new monster, you know.
Beneath that mask, there is nothing left of it.
let's turn around. You've got your back to the audience. There we are. So well done, George. Give a big round of applause to George from Kensington. Well done. Well, thank you very much, then, John. So hopefully we'll see you in other monsters maybe in the future.
Yes, I will appear on screen a couple of times
This season.
But
you can't say what.
I can't say anything.
Spoilers.
But the Christmas episode should be fantastic. And again, I'm not going to say anything about it, but it's looking pretty special.
Well, we'll look out for your name now. I'm pleased to say we've met John anyway. Please give him a big round of applause. There he goes. He's off now to worry some Vikings. Now let's get on to the old subject of horror, because horror's a theme that occurs in Doctor Who quite a lot. Now you're quite taken by this, aren't you? What is it that you like about horror?
Well, it's all horror. That's, to me, the DNA of Doctor Who from my childhood onwards. It's scary. It's a lovely...
And Mark, you
You should have little tears coming out of it.
what was your inspiration for this creature? Because it's me.
Lovely. No, well, you know, it's really exactly as I remember getting the concept pictures through, and I described it as a repulsive red leech with a mouth like a lamprey, huge black eyes there. It's absolutely beautiful. He's very
That's
cute.
what I said about
He's very cute.
Mark being a visual writer. Kind of make our job very easy. So.
But it's so lovely. It's sort of, you know, it shouldn't be cute, but it is.
But it is in a way, isn't it?
But it's weird more than anything.
And it must be very strange for you as a writer to come up with the creation and actually seeing it turning out on screen. How close are they always to your sort of original?
As I say, it's a bit of both. It can be make the mouth go.
Oh yes.
Here we are. Puckering up.
It's a bit of both. You know, you can be very surprised by what one of the artists comes up with, and sometimes it's a bit, you know, off what you had in your head, but it can be a great new idea. Other times, you know, you have to sort of keep going back and forth to sort of get it more the way you want it to be. But they're fantastically talented people and team, and so it's also collaborative. So yeah, there he is.
And Kate, you're a horror fan. Do you have to do research? Do you go and see the film?
These little soggy suckers. They were just glued to Diana Rigg's chest. So when and then this kind of wriggled around, and so the little elbows went. It was disgusting. It was amazing.
Now, Kate, we can see how the guys are getting on. Let's go and take a look at how Chris and
play with
Brian.
it.
Yes,
Play with
you
my
amuse
toy.
yourself with Mr. Sweet. Chris, how's it going?
It's going all right. I've taken the Doctor Who vibe as much as I can, but making it as gross as I possibly can.
Nice,
In
good.
terms of curry favour with Mark, basically.
Very good.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Okay, very parasitic. Okay, and Brian, you're working in 2 dimensions.
Yeah, I've gone the other direction and made a lovable little creature who will charm you. maybe a little bit more like Mr. Sweet, but hopefully still grotesque to some. But
wonderful. Well, how they do? They're doing all right, aren't they?
Oh, they're pretty good. I mean, that's why I pay them a mediocre wage. But
now, have any of you got any questions you'd like to ask the team? Stick your hands up. We've got. If I put this microphone down here, Ben can pick that up. And if you've got a question, stick your hand up. We'll find you. We'll give you a paddle with a number on, and then you can ask Mark or Kate a question about monsters. So let's have a little look. People over there.
whoa. Actually, I was going to do this. Sorry, everybody. I'll take a little picture.
Ah,
Yay!
Everyone like to wave. Yay!
Unit boy.
Amazing. Thank you. That's cool.
Hi, I'm Declan, and I would like to know what is your favourite monster? They've created.
That I've created. Ooh, well, I love Mr. Sweet. I think of mine. I love that story. It's very me and very strange. He's just a curious thing. But I'm very fond of the monsters from my new story, which is on very soon.
3 hours time. 3 hours 20 minutes.
I think they've come out very well. They're really frightening, very simple actually, but very scary. And they will haunt my dreams if I ever sleep again.
Mark, what on earth is this grotesque
Oh,
thing?
this is them. This is the Sandman from Sleep No More.
From Sleep No More.
8:15 BBC One.
8:15 BBC One. It looks rather disgusting.
Yeah, horrible.
What can you tell us about the Sandman?
The story is set in the 38th century in a space station in orbit around Neptune. And it's about a society where they've eliminated, or almost eliminated, the need for sleep using a thing called the Morpheus machine. But of course, they're meddling with things they don't understand, and this is the result.
It's really rather unsettling.
Every home should have one.
I think it's only a creature that only a mother could love, really.
Or a father.
Okay,
From your mind.
Okay,
comes
Mr.
this-
Sandman. Well, thank you very much. Now, it's a shame, really, Mark, isn't it, that we can't see a clip of tonight's episode.
It is a shame.
Would you like to see a clip of tonight's episode? Can we see a clip of tonight's episode?
You have to patch into my brain.
We'll get this telepathic link.
Contact!
Nearly there, kiddies.
These are the rescue crew. Don't get too attached. Everything you're about to see is from their individual viewpoints or taken from the station itself, the only footage available. They came to find me. This is my station, my lab. I've pieced together the rescue as best I could. If you're going to watch, then pay close attention. Your lives may depend on it.
Oh, how intriguing! Well, we shall all be watching that later. Let's go back to a few more questions. How are we doing? There's one over here. Number one. Number one. What's your name?
Hayden from Wales. What I'd like to ask is what monsters from the old series of Doctor Who would you like to reimagine for the new series?
Follow on from the Ice Warriors.
I am too young and too Irish to know the answer to that question. But I have to say that if I could bring any monster back from the series since it came back in 2005, I'd love to bring back the Crooked Man. I mean, it was seen so briefly, but it was just to actually see the monster we built in the flesh, even just seeing it wandering around, having a cup of tea, off screen was absolutely terrifying. And Dave Bonnywell, who designed it, is just a master of horror in my mind, and I'd love to bring him back.
I'm also too young and too Irish. But it would have to, you know, you bring back a monster, it has to be the right story. I mean, it's great to have the Zygons back because they're such a great monster. But I think there's a reason why all those big ones sometimes have remained as one-off stories. It's because they're so effective. But I mean, you could do the Crinoids again, the Wirren. There's some fantastic monsters, but we're all just, I suppose, interested in just creating new ones, so that someone will ask that question in 30 years' time. But yeah, we all have favourites. Maybe the Zarbi. Whatever happened.
The Zarbi and the Menoptera.
I'd like to see them staggering on this stage.
Yeah, sorry.
Look forward to Googling him later.
Beetles.
Thanks, Hayden.
Okay, next question. Where are we? We got one over here, yes.
Hi, my name's Michelle, I'm from Brighton.
Hello.
Of the New Who era, what's been the most fun monster or villain to bring to life?
I think probably the Foretold. When we got the script first, we knew it wasn't human, and we went in like a crazy direction doing the designs. And then we went to the first meeting, and they said, "No, just make a mummy." And we're like, "Ah, cool." So we just made the scariest version of the classic, you know, old monster mummy that we could, and it was such brilliant fun. And Jamie Hill, who plays him, just absolutely brought him to life to a T. That little quaver in his hand and the drag of his foot, and like, you know, it's just wonderful when you build something and that you have wonderful people like John and Jamie who can take it, you know, on screen, bring it to life.
They weren't allowed to put the mummy in the trailer because it was too scary, and it really is frightening. It really is frightening.
I mean, that's
mummies generally aren't. It really is a scary mummy.
Yeah, that was very good, wasn't it? Certainly that one. Now, unfortunately, time is beating us. We can't take any more questions because we've got to go and speak to. We've got to go and see the finished designs from the guys. So, time is up. They've had their challenge, and it's time for you to have a look. So, Chris, first of all, you're finished.
Yeah, I've finished. I've got. If I just pause my little film and I'll play my little movie of how it got made.
Okay.
So basically,
look at that.
I decided to go again the grossest little parasite creature I could possibly come up with. On the back of him, we've got like a weird little sack that's supposed to look like a brain. So like it's camouflaged, and we've got these little gross little legs coming out, and I gave him a horrible little mouth and 3 little eyes. So the little brain, I sort of sculpted that on real quick. Gave him as many legs as I could do, because legs are always gross. And then yeah, put some little eyes, some little teeth, so we can suction and take your memories from you.
Fabulous.
That is amazing for 25 minutes. Let's take a look at your creation.
I don't have a slideshow, but I do have layers. I took a very loose interpretation again, which I'm usually not allowed to do. So instead of bits of brains you don't use, I took particularly lazy brains and a creature that would live on them. So here's a character goofing off on his phone, and along appears this little fellow here. Senses a tasty treat, and then while this guy is not looking, the character here gets close to his ear, and then this little thing goes in and eats his brains. And at the end of the day, he's very satisfied with his dinner.
Well, that's great stuff. Scientific experiment here to see which one you prefer, whether it's Chris's 3D sort of spidery creature, or is it Brian's purple brain creature?
I think it's a clear victory for Brian.
I think it's a clear victory
despite not doing my brain.
So that means, Chris, I'm afraid you're fired. And did any of you come up with a name? Shout out a name. Lacune. One over here. Craniacs. Okay. Cerebra.
Very nice. Social media, good. Social media.
The purple and green monster.
Got him?
The purple and green monster.
It's quite 1974, I like that.
Well, Mark, what do you like out of that selection?
I like the Lacuna. That's nice.
Fantastic.
Yes. Lacuna.
Lacuna. So we've got a brand new monster.
Yeah. It's up to you.
So if the Lacuna appears in one of your future scripts, we shall know where it came from. Well, that is about all the time we've got today. Thank you very much for coming along. Please give a huge round of applause for Kate Walsh.